Exhibitions were one of the first mediums through which the history of the German occupation of Europe was told. And the reason why exhibitions became so prominent in the post war era is because this medium is extremely versatile. Exhibition as a medium allowed to bring different items, different objects, different images together into one space. Often we have very diverse exhibition practices from that time that even would include cinemas and film screenings. So we can really see how this medium gave a lot of possibilities to the makers of the exhibition to display history. I think that one important group of organizers were war crimes commissions. So, such commissions were established in most of the formerly occupied countries, and their mission was to gather evidence of crimes committed in a given countries by the Germans. So, they would gather testimonies, but also objects they would photograph, and so on. And later on, this material was, of course, very important for post war trials that aimed to bring justice, but also aimed to find accountability for the perpetrators. Um, However, this was not only used in the courtroom, but also in these exhibitions, because all this material became part of the kind of public history of the post war era. At the same time, we should also remember all of these organizations were made of people, and these people had very individual and very specific stories. So, in a way, each exhibition has like a kind of intersection of this more, I would say, objective, institutional approach, but also very personal. There were a lot of exhibitions that were also organized by specific groups of people. So, for example, Holocaust survivors, for whom it was very important to narrate, to tell to the world what has happened to them. So, in our exhibition, we study how different experiences of violence and how the experience of German occupation was processed through these exhibitions. And I think that for contemporary viewers and for our contemporary perspective, this is a very important history to process and to study very closely. What we can see is that the exhibitions are an evidence. They basically testify to the fact that in the aftermath of the great and unprecedented violence that span across Europe, people were not silent. They wanted to tell their stories, and it was very important to be able to create a narrative, a public also history of the violence that was experienced. And exhibitions are really important for that reason, and they show us that even in the most challenging conditions, so as we know, post-war Europe was a very still a very violent continent. There was political violence. A lot of Holocaust survivors still were experiencing anti-Semitic violence. So in many ways, the violence did not stop with the end of the war. But still, even in those very challenging conditions, people felt that it is very important to tell their stories and to narrate what happened to them during the Second World War. So I think, in a way, looking at all these exhibitions, we can really appreciate how culture, how exhibitions, how museums are important institutions when it comes to coming to terms with very difficult past.